Hi all, welcome to the webinar, A Day in the Life of an API Pen Tester. So it's 6 already, so we'll just wait for 5 more minutes. Just give us 5 more minutes. We'll wait for everybody else to join. And yeah, exactly at 6:05 we'll start this webinar. And I hope my video is clear and my audio is also audible to you guys. If yes, I think you guys can raise your hands. Okay, thanks, Bhavna, for the confirmation. So yeah, let's just wait for 5 more minutes and we'll start this amazing to be webinar. It's 6:04 guys, so in just less than 30 seconds, we'll start the webinar. So I request our mentor and the speaker for this webinar, Mr. Rahif, to open his camera and microphone.
Hi, Saurabh. Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Raif. Hi. So I hand over this webinar to you. Okay. So you can begin with the today's session. And guys, I hope you guys find this session helpful. And yes, Raif, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Saurabh. So, welcome everyone to the webinar from CyberSapiens. I hope you all are doing well. So, who are we? Who are the CyberSapiens? So, we are the cybersecurity experts who have committed to secure the digital world. So, how are we doing this? So, we are doing this by giving many kinds of services for the people and for the businesses also. So, we are the ISO 27001 certified company. So along with this, we have many kinds of VAPT services. So mainly the different VAPT domains that which we cover are the network VAPT, the web application VAPT, and along with it, we have the mobile application VAPT, which covers the iOS as well as the Android, and also the API VAPT and cloud VAPT. So along with these services, we will be also providing the different kinds of services on the security testings like IoT security testing, infrastructure VAPT, thick and thin client security testing. So these are something related to security testing. So apart from this one, we also have the services like SOC analysis, malware attack analysis, and the GRC, that is the governance, risk management and compliance, and also phishing and malware simulation, which is much required in today's environment of cybersecurity. So for that, we launch our product FishCare. So FishCare is the first line of phishing defense. So many people, many organizations take our FishCare, which where we perform the phishing simulation attacks, and they will be awareing, they will give the awareness training for their organization so that they will be prepared for the certain kind of things like the phishing attacks where people try to take over their accounts, take over their credentials, data breaches. So to avoid all those unwanted malicious activities, we provide this service to our products through our products. And along with this, we also provide the employee awareness and cyber security training to college as well as to the employees of the different organizations. And to know more about these services, to get the clear understanding about the different types of services we provide, you can scan this QR code, or else you can directly type Cyber Sapiens in the Google and you will get the direct link. So under the website, you can see the different services that we provide. So you can get hold of the different services along with the which I have mentioned. So you can get a clear idea about this one, and you can also contact the team which will be working hard behind this. So you'll get a much more details. If you have any doubts, then respective team members will get back to you on this one. So you can save this QR code. You can take a screenshot, or else you can visit the website for more details. Okay. So hello everyone. So my name is Fakruddin Rahif, and I am working as a senior security analyst here in CyberSapiens. So I am a certified API security professional, CEH, and certified app practitioner. Along with this, I have been also training the interns. So I have handled multiple batches. I have trained almost around 500 plus interns in cybersecurity, and I will be also doing the cybersecurity consultant. So today we are here gathered to talk about a few agendas. So mainly the a day in a life of API Pentester. So the agenda that we'll be covering are, first we'll see the theoretical overview. We'll get a few understanding of the terms related to APIs, the pen testing, and what are the things that will be the prerequisites before we move into the most advanced parts. And once we cover the theoretical overview, let's see how we can start the planning of API penetration testing. So what are the terms and terminologies which falls under this part? So we will discuss in details when we move into that part. And once we complete the planning and the initial phases of the API testing, we will see the reconnaissance and scanning. So that is where the technical part starts. When the vulnerability testing starts, that will be the initial stage, and then we'll move into the testing of the different vulnerabilities and the exploitations. So once the exploitation part is done, then the final stage is where we are getting back to the clients, where will be the reporting, remediation, and training part will be handled. So these are the main agenda of today's webinar. So let's discuss one by one, and we'll go in depth. So beginning with the theoretical overview. So what is an API? What is an API penetration testing? So before that, I'll give a small introduction to what is an API. So API is a kind of a term that has been introduced into the world of technology so that different components, different organizations or different devices can have an interaction between each other. So maybe a web application and a server or a mobile application and a server. So nowadays all the organizations, main of the organizations, they come up with the APIs so that the smooth communication and transmission of data is happening between the two components. So testing of these APIs is called as the API penetration testing. So it is a process of simulating the attacks, trying to identify the weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and the loopholes in their application programming interface is called as the API penetration testing. So we will be doing that for multiple purposes. So there can be different purposes that the employee will be giving us the targets so that the different purposes are make sure that the main goal of the cyber sapiens is to create a cyber safe environment. So that is the main goal. And along with it, what will happen is our clients who are coming us for the API penetration testing, we see that their applications are safe and secure so that any kind of future attacks that anyone will try to do will be never be successful. So they will be completely shielded, and for that is the main purpose API testing is being introduced and done into different organizations. So these are different purposes which will be benefited for the organization when they conduct a successful API penetration testing. So to do this, it is very important to organization to do this API penetration testing. So what are the different importance? So as I told you, now APIs are becoming more most of the organizations which are like mainly the IT organizations. So they will be coming up with the API, mainly the REST API. So APIs will be of different types like REST API, SOAP API, and SOAP was like the earlier kind of API that was being used. The first kind of API was built to the SOAP technology. So SOAP APIs are mainly built through the XML, so the request and the response that is generated from the SOAP APIs. So those will be like the transmission of data will happen in SOAP APIs to the XML format. And nowadays the most trending API is the REST API, and there are still other kind of APIs like GraphQL, RPC. So the trending API which I can tell is currently the REST API. And why people are using the REST API more is because the REST API, it uses the JSON format. So I told you SOAP API, it uses the XML format. So XML format are like it is mostly complicated to code. There will be multiple headers. The data will be not easily human readable. Whereas compared to the JSON format, where in the REST API, they will be using the JSON format. So if you just see a JSON format, you will clearly understand what exactly this is. So coming back to the point now, so most of the organizations nowadays use the APIs. So if they build the web applications or any mobile applications, it can be either Android. So any kind of applications they use, in the backend, the request will be sent to the APIs. So these APIs will be sending the request and equivalent response will be generated back, and it won't be visible through the UI. So not every API will be visible through the UI, wherein few of the web APIs we can get capture it through the different tools and we can get understand to it. But it is not like the traditional website testing. So we have this community called as OWASP. You guys might be familiarized with this community. So these organizations, when they come to know that the APIs are being widely used around the different organizations, so these APIs are like they are potential endpoints for the malicious actor to get access into a system, get access into the particular resources which are not authorized to use, particular content which is not a public property. It is an internal matter of a particular organization. So this API can leak many informations unknowingly or through some particular misconfiguration. So it is very important for organizations to keep their API secure. Uh, so for that thing, many people are now trying to learn the API penetration testing. Many organizations are trying to get their API tested. So they will approach us. And let's discuss when they approach us, what are the different steps, what are the different phases. So let's start from the A till the Z in this webinar. We'll cover as much as possible. And so let's move into the different topics. So before that, let's see what are the types of testings that we perform under the APIs. So mainly there are three types of testing, that is the black box testing, white box testing, and gray box testing. So let's discuss one by one, and let's get a better understanding on this one. So black box testing. So black is basically like a blank. It's like we are trying as per the external resources or external approach. We will not having any understanding how the application works, what is the use of the application, the logic behind it, the objective behind it. We will be just going as a normal user or normal visitor, any information that is publicly available. Through that we will be approaching the target is basically the application whom the client want to be tested. So if that is all based on their requirement. So they will tell us first you do the black box testing and then we'll go to the white box testing. Or else they will be only requiring the white box testing directly. So what is white box testing now? It is completely different from the black box. So in black box, as I told, it is completely a blank. A tester will not have any clear idea how many users will be there. But that will be not the case in white box. So in white box, what will happen is the client, they will give all the resources. So they will tell like we have this kind of API documentation. Under this documentation, we have two versions of API. We are using the latest version. So entire details they will give, the documentation, they will give the file structure, the logic behind each of the API endpoints, the objective of the endpoints, the data entry points, the different types of user roles, the admin like they will give us a sample user ID, they will give us a sample admin credential so that we can test the entire logic as well as the function. So basically in the black box testing, we will be testing the functionalities and the outer areas, the external areas which where we won't be having any clear idea about the internal matters. So coming to the gray box testing, it is like the combination of both, where the black box and white box testing will be carried out, where in the initial areas we might not have the complete understanding, only partial knowledge will be provided to a particular tester, and based on that the testing will be done. And it is all completely depend upon the client's requirement. So few of them only might require the black box testing, so they will be not willing to share all their credentials. So they will be telling like, oh, the information which you have publicly, you can do a testing on it, and based on that a final report can be shared. So once again, these are all depend upon the testing will be chosen depend upon the client's requirement. So what are the common tools that will be used for the API penetration testing? So compared to web application, the common tool is the burp suite. So apart from that, the one important tool that we'll be learning today is the Postman tool. The Postman tool is used for the API testing purpose as well as for the developer purpose also. And along with the Postman, we will be using the burp suite tool, where I will show you how we can integrate between the Postman and the burp suite tool, and the request which we are sending in Postman tool, how we can capture it in the burp suite also. And Insomnia is also a tool which is used for testing the APIs. Then we have Swagger UI, OS Zap for scanning, for endpoint fuzzing, and the SQL map for testing the injection vulnerabilities. So these are some of the common tools, and along with it, we have other tools also for testing. And these are some basic and most commonly used tools for the API penetration testing. And let's see the usage of this. So now we'll move into the different phases of the testing. So once there's a particular lead which will be coming into organization. So now, for example, we have got a lead telling that we have a API under our organizations. We have built an application programming interface. So I want our API to be tested. So it's not like we just directly the client will give a particular or a cybersecurity company a URL or a documentation, they start testing. So it will be not like that. So there is a certain set of stages and phases that need to be completed. And once these steps are done, then the testing will be done. And once after testing, there are certain other formalities also that need to be covered. And once these are completely done, a final ending project will be whole project will be completed. So we'll go phase by phase how it will begin. So the first step is the scoping and the objectives. So what exactly is scoping questionnaire? So now when the client they require, client when they approach, the particular tester he will be requiring few amount of details. So the details he will need to understand so that he can get a clear idea about the application, what it is using, what is the backend services they are providing, and how many endpoints they have, what are the under the all the API endpoints, how many endpoints are in scope, how many are supposed to be tested, its authentication details. Then we'll have an initial meeting. So in the initial meeting, they will show us the overview of their APIs, how it has been built, how is the usage of the each different APIs. So we'll discuss all these things, which will cover the complete overview of the application which has been built. So if they have the multiple URLs, so we will ask them like, are all the URLs, are all the API endpoints in scope? So all those things will be shared, and also we will be sharing a scoping questionnaire. So something like this one. So I have a sample questionnaire here. So if we open it, so first one here it is. How many number of APIs are need to be tested? So it's not like that every organization will have a single APIs. So multiple APIs can be done for the different kind of usage and their objectives. So most commonly we will be receiving one APIs. So under that one APIs there will be multiple requests. So I'll show you how a single API and a multiple endpoints under a single API will be looking like. So normally they will be feeling it like we have one API, and what will be the number of endpoints. So that endpoints will be also depend upon their endpoints will be also depend upon their organization. So if they have a small API, then it can be like 3 API endpoints or 4 API. So if it is a much larger organization, it's a complicated API, it might have around 1,000 API endpoints also, or it can be around 40 or 50. So that will be depend upon the a single organizations. And there can be different technology used. So I have shown like the types of APIs. So they can use the REST API, and along with it the SQL database which they use, so that they can mention what are the other technologies they have integrated in it, which they have used in their API, so that can be added. And here we be like providing, if the like most of them will be not having much clear idea about the question, so there's like examples will provide like there are total of 11 APIs and we need to test the total number of in each of these. So suppose here we have 11, and we can mention the like they can mention a detailed thing like the first API. Okay, so in the first API, it will be 20 endpoints, and in the second API, it will be one API, it will be 20 endpoints. So something like this, they can add in depth. So if it is a single API, then they can directly add the API endpoint count. So there will be no confusion. But if you have multiple, like more than one APIs, like 2 or 3 APIs, then they can mention like in one API it is 20 endpoints. Under the second API, they can add the API name also based on their organization, like whether it is some kind of product or any web page, Android API. They can have the web API as well as the Android API. So all those things they can add, and under each API, we need a clear count of the API endpoints that are available and number of APIs that are need to be tested. And the technology used, as I told, the different technologies are available to create an API. So they can come up with they can write or mention their technology used by consulting their developers, their technical team. So once that is done, once the discussion is done, they will be returning us with this response, like the different technology that are being used and the number of user roles. So what will be the number of user roles? So they might have like uh, a normal user, like a guest user, and there will be other type of user, maybe now admin is there, then there will be super admin. So they can either mention the number of roles, or else most of them will specify the what are the different user roles. So anyhow, in the initial meeting, we will be asking them like you have mentioned like guest user is there, admin user is there. So what will be their difference? What are their criteria? Are they providing any role-based access control? So what are the power of each of the users? Like what is the difference between admin and a super admin? So all those things can be clarified in the initial meeting, and which will define the number of period of the project it goes. So the user present, what are the user roles present? So user roles is basically like, now for example, we have a guest. So guest will have the user roles like now login and a password. Then we have the admin. So admin might have an API keys which are being generated from a website or from the Android API. Like the Android API, then through a APK files, it can be generated. Or even the admin might have the data set like the login and password itself. So all those things can be like based on their application, how it has been designed. They will be mentioning it. The user roles present. So like it's basically the number of user roles. They will mention it as three, and also they will be mentioning the guest admin here itself. And data sets they will be mentioning additionally if there is any complicated process, or normally it will be login and password itself. And we have the scope of testing. So all the API endpoints to be included or only few. So this was like discussed here now. So here first one API will be having 20 endpoints. So what they will be doing is, so if all the endpoints are not supposed to be tested, they want to test only one single API out of this, then they can mention like only one API point is supposed to be tested. So it can be a login API or else any post related like post method, other related API. So if it is every API will have its objective, so they can mention the objective. So once the initial meeting is being done, so we will be discussing based on this one and the final. So once the initial meeting is done, we will be discussing all the questionnaire response which they have generated. And once the initial meeting has been concluded, we will get an understanding about the usage of their API, the architecture of the API, and we can give a number of days this project will be going on based on the size of their API. So if they have any more than 100 or like around 500, then it might take around 2 or 3 months. So if they have 1,000 and it has any complicated authentication process, multiple users and too many objectives, then it might go to upon 4 or 5 months. And based on the application and based on the size of the API, the project time period, it takes as long as that one. So there won't be any fixed time for testing like 1 day or 2 days. So that will be completely depend upon the particular organization. So we can also conclude a project in like the testing phase in 2 or 3 days if we have any one or two APIs, and based on the request method. If it is a post request, then it might take some more time. If it is only get request, then it might take lesser time compared to the other one. So that will be all depend upon the project ultimately. So these are the things that we'll be discussing under the scoping and the objectives. And the next part is the legal and ethical consideration, one of the most important part before beginning the vulnerability testing. Like why exactly this is required? So as we know, we are the ethical hackers. So ethical hackers means we need the permission. So main difference between a hacker and ethical hacker is the consent or the permission. So if you don't have permission to test on any targets, if you find the loopholes, and if you are using, if a particular malicious actor, if he's using it for his personal gain, if he's using it for money purpose or blackmailing or extra, any kind of things, he will be using it illegally. So that will be a unethical hacker. So ethical hacker is we are approaching them or they will approach us. There will be agreements, there will be meetings, there will be updates. So all the things will be going professionally. So all those there will be a set of steps that need to be done, so which we are discussing now, the initial phases, then the testing phases. So all those if they are done, then it will be a proper project. So under these phases, one of the important is the legal ethical consideration, where all these phases will be covered, and there will be a legal agreement signed between two of the organization, the testing organization and the client organization. So they will come up with the agreement, they will write the consent. So under this they will mention like we this company like they will be having the authority to access these many informations. And from the testing company also, they will be signing agreement like the any findings, any details which they have given or which we find will not be disclosed publicly. So every proof of concept that has been recorded will be kept private and will only be shared between two parties. And ensuring that all these rules are not broken. So they will be signing an agreement, and the NDA form, there is non-disclosure agreement will be done, where disclosing of certain informations is prohibited, and certain guidelines will be there. So if anything goes wrong, then like we have the agreement. So whoever goes against the agreement, they will be legally punished, or legal actions will be taken for a certain set of organizations. So this is one of the important part where the legal and ethical consideration is done. So without this, the testing will be not considered ethical. So we might have not a proper organization rules, the guidelines, the policies which should be generated between both the parties. The understanding should be there. And once this is signed, once agreement is done, then we'll move into the technical parts. That is the reconnaissance and the scanning phase. So this is where the first step and the important phase of the beginning of the testing. So here the technical team will be handling over where the initial reconnaissance will be done. So reconnaissance will be like we will be having certain requirements from the organizations, like we will be requiring a API collection file. So as I told you, we have the Postman tool here. So this is how the Postman interface will be looking like. So it will be not like this entirely, but while you're downloading, these files won't be there, and rest of them will be simple. It will be like this. So here you can see there's a plus button, just like how we have the browser. Similarly, we can open multiple tabs. We can add our request here. There will be multiple requests. When we click on send, it will generate the output. So now this now there is no certain like this domain. So once we get certain kind of domains, then we can access it. So when we send a particular request, a certain response will be shown here. So what are these files now? So these are the collection files. So this is something which is being shared by the client. So how the client will be sharing is it will be sharing a JSON file. So JSON file is, as I told you, the REST APIs, they use JSON for communication. So that JSON file we can import it. So we can click on import, and that file which has been shared by the client, we will be importing it. So when we successfully import, we'll get these kinds of file. Only one file we will get. So like if I have six projects under me now, so there will be six Postman collection files of different companies. So for example, now we have Crappy. So this is one of the API, vulnerable API, which is used for testing purpose. So now suppose this is a Postman collection file of a particular organization. So this is how it will be looking. So this is one single API, and under this API, all these are the API endpoints. So you can see it has been written post, and some we have get. So get request and post request. So there are other kinds of request available like put, patch, delete, where each of the methods will be having its own objectives. So mainly we can see is the post and get method. So if they have any updating of any kind of file, then it will be post. If you have anything like deleting a particular content or anything, like that API endpoint will be the delete method. This is our normal Postman file will be looking like. So just to open the lab. So this is a vulnerable API lab now. So now suppose this is our client here. So this client will be sharing the Postman collection file. So Postman is the name of this tool. So you can download it from their official website, postman.com/download. If you type, then you will get the files for Windows and Linux. If you're a Windows user, you can download it for the Windows. So now when you open it, you will find the import file here. So this file is basically we are reporting from the client side. So client will be sharing us this file. So once we download this, if I open this file, you can see how it will be looking like. So this is how the JSON file will be looking like. So there will be URLs in this one, and the different backend codes will be there. The data that need to be imported, name, email ID, phone number. So all those things will be available here itself. So as I told you, this will be like a backend testing. So not every API will be completely visible. So if it is a web API, then we can have a visibility, but not every web API will be have a particular UI kind of thing where we can click the buttons, move our arrows and click. Not every time. So few of the organizations might build their web API which will be built, or few will be sending only the Postman collection file, and we have to test it in this one only. So that will be based on the client how they have built it. So we should be ready for testing it in any kind of states. So this was like a small overview of Postman and how we can import the file. So reconnaissance and the initial setup will be like this itself, where we will be setting up the file. So not everyone will be sharing a file like this. They can send a Word document, and now suppose this is a URL. API endpoint URL, you can see API/auth/sign up. So I can read the file here like sign up to example.com, organization's name or a website. So this here we will be specifying the details like name, email, number, and a password. And when I click on send, we will get a any response will be there. So response here, we can see the cookies, we can see the headers, the test result. So you're showing to 200 okay or 500 okay. Based on the status code, we can check the responses. And yeah, so how a normal response and request will be looking like. So we can edit our response through body and we can go to raw. So if it is a post request, we can edit the response and we can send it. So while we are sending it, it is basically a post request. We are adding some details into a server. So if it is a get request, then there is nothing to add in the raw. So we have to just we are getting the information from the server. So anything we have to add, we have to specify it in the URL. And in the one single URL, if we send all the details, then we can get the equivalent response. So that will be the get request. So in post request, we have to insert something. So in get request, we will be getting information from the server. So there is a get request, the post request. And the next part of the reconnaissance will be we will try to find the any undocumented API calls. So in the documentation, if they are giving us only this set of API calls, so what we can do is we can do some small scanning phase, so scanning and reconnaissance part. So we can do a scanning and we can try to gather information about any other APIs which they have not been documented. So in the documentation, if they tell us like all the APIs are in scope, and then we can test it. So if any of the APIs which they have not documented, so that might have some any additional information that which we can use for the testing, and we can also report it as like there are few endpoints that are being enabled and we have not documented properly, or we have not restricted any. We have not provided any restriction to that endpoints, and that can be also reported. So that will be the how the report format will be there. We'll discuss it later. So scanning and the reconnaissance. So scanning, as I told, we can use the Zap tool, or through the Postman also we can scan it. So now I have Zap here installed. Okay, so the Zap is from the OWASP community itself. So how we have the top 10 standards for web applications. Similarly, we have the top 10 standards for the APIs also. So here, how to begin the scanning. So normally when we scan for the URLs or the websites, we will be going here, automated scan, and we can add the URL here. So normally I don't go with the automation scanner because most of the clients or the any online programs, they won't be accepting it. So for knowledge purpose, I'll just show you how we can scan the APIs. So as I mentioned before, they will be sharing us this kind of files. That is the Postman collection files, the JSON files when they share us, which will be importing into a Postman. So this file we can upload it here. So we can import this file. So import the Open API definition. We can choose the file here. So in the downloads, so we have this file. So what I'll do, I'll copy this. I'll paste the file here. I'll click on open and the URL. So now this won't be scanned properly because there is no proper URL mentioned here. So we have to mention it. So when we get the client project, it will be mentioned in the file itself. Now the target URL. So we have the crappy. So crappy is also installed over the internet. So suppose this is the crappy lab. So this is how the interface of the web will be looking like. And behind this lab, there will be multiple API calls running. So suppose these are the fields which I enter, and I'll click on import. Okay, import completed, and we can see the alerts on the sites. So let's upload another file. So I have one more JSON file. So let's see. Okay, so it is importing the files here, and you can see the different API calls of this particular organization or the website. So this is a website. This will be a web API, and so I have mentioned it before. Like not every API will be having a clear visibility. So here you can see we have a field here. So if I write something like now a test and password, if I write a test and just a second. So I'll access this application here. So I'll write the credentials. And when I click on login, I will turn on the burp suite. I have to give actual credentials. So I'll show you in the upcoming stages how it will be looking in the backend. So for now, what we are discussing is about the scanning phase. So once we import the file, we can get to know about its like the endpoints, the different API calls, the versions of it. The version 2 is enabled here, and you can see the request and the response. You can see there is API v2, and if you find the login page here, so if there's a login API detected, then we can see it will be like the web application name slash login slash API slash v2, which will be something like this one. So login it will be identity slash API slash auth slash login. So now this is a web API. So now what I'm trying to tell you is, so it might look like a website, but when I capture the request with the proper login credentials and in the burp suite, when we see, so it will be basically running this endpoint. So while seeing, it will be looking like a website, but in the backend, it will be a API call that will be running. So that is the reason they are doing the API testing so that the website will be secure from different kind of API attacks. Now, while we are scanning, we can see the different kinds of vulnerabilities visible here. Like suppose we have the X content type option missing in this particular API endpoint. And since it is automation tool generated result, we cannot go for it completely. So I will show you how we can do the security header testing later on. And for now, I will discuss one more scanner that is through burp suite. So in burp suite also we can do the scanning through the new scan, and we can specify a URL here. So if I specify this URL, so the scanning will be started, and we can see roll and audit for these applications. So we have to give a proper API endpoint. So now I've just given the website name. So we can give a proper API endpoint. And once we capture the request, we can send that to the scanning. And you can see certain type of, so I'll not go for the scan because it will be sending multiple requests to that particular website, and it might have some performance issues for the other genuine users. So you can see 12 requests as being sent, and we can see the multiple numbers here. That is now it is 0. That is basically the issues. So issues is sense if they have found anything, so it will be listed here. So we have the other scans here, like issues is the JWT token is weak, and we have email ID disclosed. So all those things can be not reported, but we can examine it manually and we can confirm it since it is generated from the scannings. So that certainty will be mentioned it here. Like if it is a certain vulnerability, it will show it here, like the confidence section, and severity it will show. Like they have 4 categories here. This red will be critical, so high severity, then medium, then low, and informational. So few critical vulnerabilities will be listed here, and from there we can get the reference and we can do the manual testing. So this is something about the scanners, which most of the clients, like when we ask them, suppose like can we use the scanners, they mostly tell no because of two main reasons. So what are the two main reasons why the scanners are being avoided? So that is mainly one, it will be sending unwanted and multiple requests. So scanners like per second, it might send 300 or 400, or it can be much more. Also, we can like few scanners, we can like set the the throttles like per second, how many requests need to be sent, but still they won't be accepting it because there might be any downtime that might occur to their organizations. So there can be like multiple requests which is, and if this is a production level vulnerability, production level application, then their genuine users might face the slowness of the website. There will be some abnormal behavior. So for all this, this is a one option why they have why the most of the clients they restricted to use the automation scanner. So most of them they won't entertain this scanning. And one more reason is like the generated results, it will be not absolutely true. So there can be a false positive results that will be generated from scanning. So for these two main reasons, most of them will be preferring for the manual testing. So that is up to the client. So if they're allowing the scanning, then we can also scan. And if they are not, then we can move into the manual vulnerability testing. So here we'll move into the vulnerability testing of the APIs. So under APIs, we can test for like we can begin with the low-level vulnerabilities. So under low-level vulnerabilities, we'll be covering like the missing security headers, missing configurations. There is the server-related details that are being disclosed through error message. If there are any extra messages like unwanted files or any endpoints, any error logs, if all those are disclosing through error messages, then that will be also considered as a low level vulnerability. Then input validations, for example, now we had a sign up field where they're asking phone numbers. So in the phone numbers, what I'm supposed to write is I have to write a 10-digit phone number or 11 based on the different country codes. And so what I will do is I will try to add any alphabets like alphanumerical characters. So if they allow and if they log in or create an account under that alphanumeric characters in the phone number field, then that will be input invalidation. So in phone numbers, only certain characters are need to be allowed. So if they allow like alphabets like ABCD, then that will be it might impact their performance behavior. So anyone can add any codes, any unwanted codes, commands. So that will be it might lead to any potential vulnerabilities. So if that is happening, then that can be a low level vulnerability. So we can also check like the status code. So here we have the status codes here. So when I click on send, so now it might show 200 because there is a response that it is generated, but there is no proper like required. Now this is a login field. So when I click on login, I am supposed to get the API token. So that API token is not being able to generate. But what we are checking is we are checking the status codes here. So suppose there is a API token which is being generated and ideal response is being thrown. Like for example, you have successfully logged in. Here is your API token. But still, if it is showing 500 status code or 401, 403 or something like that, forbidden or restricted content. So that will be the like a vulnerability, like low level vulnerabilities where the status code are not properly being designed. So these are some of the what is that the low level vulnerability. So like as I told, we can also do the missing security header testing. So here we have an API that is a JSON placeholder. So JSON placeholder is a free fake REST API. We have multiple endpoints here. Like if I visit this, so we have costs. So what I will do, I'll copy this, I'll paste it here, I'll click on send. So I'll get some details here. So 200 okay, and I've got some users. So how to test for the security headers? So for that, we will be using a certain codes. So I have the commands here. This is security header scanning. So I'll copy this and I will go to the script section. So in the script, I can paste it. And when I click on send, I'll get the test result. So it is showing fail. So what this means is this has checked for the CSP header, then the X-frame options, then strict transport security, and also access protection. The different security headers. So there'll be different kind of headers like general headers, informational headers, and security headers are something which has been implemented to application to provide to prevent certain kind of attacks, where each header will be having its own objective. So if it is a web API, then it might they might require to implement the extreme options to avoid the clickjacking attacks. So if it is not enabled or if it is not properly configured, then it will show fail, and attackers might able to perform the clickjacking attacks. And if the CSP header is missing, then they can do some like command injections or injection level vulnerabilities. So XSS protection, if it is not there, then those kind of attacks it can happen. So strict transfer protocol, if the HTTP is not properly configured, then they might be able to run it. See, it is being run in HTTPS as well as in HTTP also. So while we are running in HTTP, we should not be able to give the 200 status code okay. So this can be like different low level, like the security headers. And apart from this, we have the login field. So I'll show you in this one, like here I don't have an account. So I'll create an account here. So I can also host it offline also. So what I will do is the hosting process is mentioned in their GitHub itself. So through Docker, we can host this. So we can paste these three commands and we can successfully host it. I'll go to Kali and so I have this file now. So this is Docker compose YAML file. And what I have to do is I have to run this Docker file. So Docker compose up and build. So instead of hosting it locally, you can run it through the internet also, over the internet, which they have already hosted it. But the problem is many people might be accessing it, and like there will be some slowness if anyone is using any scanners or something like that. So if you host it offline, then we can access it locally in the local network itself. So let's wait while this to start. And also we have one more lab, one more vulnerable API lab. So that is WAMP. So WAMP lab is also a vulnerable lab which we can practice, which you can use to practice the API testing. And here are the different endpoints and what are the objectives of each endpoint. Like mainly, as I told, like we ask the client what is the strength of your API, like how many endpoint it has. So these are the endpoint and what is the objective. So they will be sharing this. So if they share only this and the URL, we have to manually add it. Like now here I have imported it and I have got the collections. So what I can do is I can go to new. So under new, I can write collections. So I have to rename the file to any company name like now CyberSapiens. Then we can add a request. So adding a request will like first you have to specify what type of request it is. So it is a get request. So I have to type get, then their URL which they will be providing us. So suppose if it is so let's assume it's cybersapiens.com/ then this file, this endpoint, API endpoint. We can paste it and we can click on save. So this will be saved here. And similarly, we can add the rest of the other also. So we can go here, we can add the request or we can add any subfolder here. Like this is one single folder, but like if we have the WAMP lab here, so everything will be in the one single folder itself. But in the we can create a subfolder like if we have the login API, then we can add the login folder, and under that we can add the login request. So manually creating most like almost every client, they will be sharing us this particular details because they want at some point of time they will be also using Postman to create the APIs. So they will be sending that same file to testers test the particular APIs. So here the file has been provided here. So we can find the Postman collection file. So we can download this file and we can import it. So we'll get this kind of, this is a WAMP lab. So we can also see the lab setup process. So through there will be two methods basically. That will be one is through Python and one is through Docker. So such type of files we can add and we can host it locally and we can access it in the local network itself. So to access the Crafty lab, So let's see. Okay, so now I have hosted it locally. So how this lab actually works is, so this is a website, but in the background there will be an API running. That will be basically this one. So now I can also run it through here also. So now suppose here we have the sign up field. So what I have to do is I have to add this URL along with the port number because I have hosted it locally. So when I click on send, user registered successfully. So it has taken these as the inputs. It has taken like the username as the name itself and the email as the email. So if I write a name here as now, I will write it as test. The email ID will be test@gmail.com and a phone number. So as I told, we can also check for the response, like the input validation. So I'll write a phone number now and a password. So password will be test123. So when I click, if I click on beautify, it will be listed normally. So this is how the JSON format will be looking like. So just by looking at the content, we will be able to understand the details. When I click on send, it will show user registered successfully. Please log in. So this is my login credentials now. So when I click on login, so I have to specify my details here. So my email ID is test@gmail.com and the password is test@123. So test123. When I click on send, I will get the API token, the login authentication token. So when the successful authentication happens, we will be getting the token so that we can use the all the different resources or the API endpoints. So now we have not properly logged in. In order to properly log in, I have to go to the main file, the parent file here. I have to go to authorization. So here I have to replace this with the token which I have got it, and I have to click on save. So when I click on save, every API call will be using this particular auth token, that is the user, that is test@gmail.com and test@123. So if I go here and if I type write the credentials here, see, it will be working both the ways. So this is how the web API works. So this is the API and this is the website. What you can understand is in the background, the API is running. So what I have signed up in the Postman, I was able to access the same in this network also. Since both are running in the same network, both are the same applications. So here no vehicle has been found. So how this lab actually works is we will be getting an email ID here. So email ID will be, they will be hosting a different site. I have to check the port number here. So that email ID is the Mailhog. So Mailhog is hosted in 8025. So 8025 must be the port number. So let's check. Okay, so this is a mail hub. So here I have got two emails. So these emails are basically the for the user who have been signed up. So you can see the email ID here. And this is the first one which I have created. So since I sent a blank email ID, it has taken by default these credentials. So test@gmail.com. So here I have got two credentials of your vehicle information. So hi test, we are glad to have you on board. And your vehicle information is this one. So if I go back to the application, there is add vehicle and we have to supposed to add these two credentials. So the pin code is 6524. So I'll copy this. I'll paste it here. Six, 5, 2, 4. So when I click on verify, vehicle successfully added. So this is what the application objective is, and behind this there will be multiple APIs running. So now suppose there is like community. So here we have the shop and other like dashboard, shop, community, where we can add any public post. So many like there will be multiple features in it. And if you observe the Postman collection file of that same application, it will be also same like add vehicle from the mail. So there is a post request and it will be asking for the win ID and the post and the pin code, which will be available in the mail. So we have to check the mail and we have to input it. So same thing, both will be running simultaneously. There it will be website, here it will be API, but in the background of that website, there will be API running in the backend. Okay, so now we were discussing about the low level vulnerability testing. So here also we can check for the scripts. We can also check for the in the sign up field. I have told like we have phone numbers. So in the phone numbers, what we can do is we can add the unwanted characters and we can check whether it is accepting as the data or whether it is throwing any errors. So if it's a password field, we can add passwords like 1234 and check whether they are creating an account or not. So all those will be the low level vulnerabilities. So let's go one by one in depth. So next we have the rate limiting testing. So rate limits. So every API will be configured with the rate limits. So what exactly are the rate limits? Why are it is used? So rate limiting are like configured in application so that all the unwanted request which is coming will be blocked. So anyone might do a DOS attack, anyone might do a brute force attack. So all these will be blocked, like it will check the IP address. So they might create a certain threshold like or maybe 20 requests per second they might be allowing, or 20 requests per minute. So they will be checking the IP addresses, and if the same IP is accessing a single request multiple times or same content multiple times, so they will immediately block it, maybe temporarily or permanently they will block the IP. So that is how the normal rate limiting will be working. So how to test for rate limiting now? So that will be depend upon the different API endpoints. So I can do a brute force attack and I can check whether we have uh, the rate limiting configured or not. So I can send it to burp suite and check with the intruder. So let's discuss how we can send it to burp suite now. So we have the burp suite booted up here. The burp suite is there. So here is the intruder. So how to capture the request? So I have to turn on the intercept. So before that, I will show you the configuration. So this is the IP. This is the port number 127.0.0.1, the loopback IP and the local port number 8080. So I'll turn on the intercept, go to the Postman tool here, and then in the settings, go to the settings, then under the proxy, here we have to enable the custom proxy configuration. So for both HTTP and HTTPS, and here we have to specify the same IP that has been mentioned in the burp suite. So now when I click on send, we can see the API auth login will be received in the burp suite. So in this simple way, we can capture the request and the integration between burp suite and the Postman can be done. And here I can now send it to repeater, I can send it to intruder. So all those things can be done. So if I click on send, I will receive a auth token because this is a proper credential. So suppose I don't know the password and I have to do a brute force attack in order to get the proper credentials. So for that, I can send it to intruder and I can check whether there is a rate limit configured or not. So here I have to brute force the password, so I can go to like I can create a user list and I can brute force this. So I'll not go there. It will take a long process since we have more things to cover now. And also in the APIs, we don't call it as a no rate limit attack. We call it as the lack of resource and rate limiting. So what is exactly that means is, so suppose there is any content that need to be added. So here now this is a normal request. Here we'll have a profile picture what is that profile picture uploading. So what I can try is I can normally a user what he will do, he will try to upload the a PHP file or a JPG file, which will be around 2 to 3 MB max. So a normal profile picture they will do. But what I can do is I can insert a huge amount of data like maybe 1 GB of image. So we can create an image, something like a test image or a test PNG file. And if you try to upload it, and if it is uploading, so that will be also considered around the same, under the same OS consideration of rate limiting itself, where they are not restricting the resource consumption. So when we do that, the consumption will be exhausted, and the resource will be exhausted, and it might lead to their downtime of the applications. So those are different kind of rate limiting testing. And along with that, we have the identify the API leaking sensitive informations. So how that can be done? So for that, we have to go through each and every API endpoints. So now we will never know where in which API any sensitive informations uh, might be stored. So these are some of the in-scope elements. So this will be a in-scope. So here in this endpoint, it might be like admin might be there, or else password might be there. So not only in this one, in all the API endpoints, when we click on send, it might show something like any password list of the genuine users. If I write admin slash admin.txt, if there's any txt file, then it might get downloaded, or any PHP file is there. So it might give us the admin tokens. The tokens might be leaked. Sorry. So all those things are the sensitive, which is considered the sensitive information, which can be related to their clients, which can be related to their application also. So related to clients, like if they have many users registered, so their details might be disclosed. So that can be considered as the leaking of the sensitive informations. But how to test that? So similarly, how we first the endpoints in web applications. So we can first the endpoints in the APIs also. So here we can add a endpoint. We can go to the GitHub, and we can find some few of the resources which are like related to the APIs itself. So these are all publicly available. There are multiple fuzzing list. So here you can see all fuzz.txt, and we might have the API list also here. See that API.txt is there, and there are other multiple sets of API word list. So this you can see like api.admin.auth, api.admin.menu. So all the admin related informations might be leaked, all the user related information might be leaked. So we will never know in which endpoint what kind of information might be leaked. So while we are doing the testing, these are some of the advanced level vulnerabilities that need to be checked. So this can be uh, a small testing, but it will be a lengthy process, because we have to go to each of the endpoints, we have to test it, and we have to see that not unwanted requests are being sent. Only few, like only for the get related request, if they're allowing, then only that particular endpoint we can check. So if it is a post request and it needs the authentication token, then not necessarily we might need to check. So manually, like we can check for any few sensitive endpoints, that most vulnerable potential endpoints which will be there, that can be checked. So now suppose here we have the website. So in the website also, when I check it here, we might not get anything. So we might only see only these many details. So if I click on this particular post, it will show the user's name. I think this is the user's name, and the date when he has posted it, and what is the comment that he has registered, and some only these many details will be there. So what I can do is I can just I will be logging in through this one. I'll copy the credentials. I'll paste it here. I'll write tested 123, and when I click on login, I will capture the request in Bobsert. Okay, so you can see in the backend it is sending identity slash API. So API request is being sent when I click on login. So it might be looking like a website, but in the backend there will be APIs running. So now what I was discussing is about about the sensitive endpoints. So now how we can check for the sensitive endpoints. So we will be fuzzing these endpoints, and we can get access through the websites also. And what I will be doing is I will send it to repeater, and in the repeater, when I click on send, it might show like bad credentials or something like that. Any server related informations, or any kind of server related information. If it is a bad credentials, then that will be thrown. So let's see. So not invalid username. Let's try once again. Okay, so some kind of some small errors might be there. So when we log into a website, we can see these many amount of so these kind of information might be there. So what we can do is we can click on this. So when we click on this, what will happen in the backend? These requests will be running the post or like create post or get recent post. So all these information will be there, but in the response of this API will be like it might generate the results like his email ID might be we can get it, or else his locations, his vehicle related information. So all those things can be generated. So not only the endpoint fuzzing, by also checking each and every endpoint, we have to analyze every API which are available under scope, and we have to try with all the endpoints, and we have to examine the we have to analyze the response that has been generated to check whether unwanted or extra credentials that are not supposed to be shown ideally, whether those are displayed or not. So in that way, we can check for the whether any API is leaking any sensitive informations. And then we have the authentication mechanisms and the authorization flows. So what is authentication and authorization? So two are the different terms. So authentication is basically we are trying to log in. So one is proving his identity. So just by sending this request, we will be proving the identity. And so here I was supposed to change the IP address here. So that was the error which I faced. So what I was telling is authentication. So when I log into a particular credentials, and when I click on login, if it is a invalid credential, then it will show invalid. So if it is a proper credential, then I will be authenticated. I will get the authentication token. And what is authorization? So authorization is something like giving permissions. So both are the different terms. So suppose now we have an office space here. So in this office space, not everyone will be allowed inside. So now I am in a conference room now. So suppose there will be a guest launch. So who are coming to inquire about certain services or these things, they will be only authorized to enter the guest areas only. So they will be not allowed to authorize the cafeteria of the office. They will not allowed to access the cabins of certain maybe a marketing team or the conference rooms. So not everyone will be having authorization to enter the certain rooms in the office. So who are the authorized people, only they can enter it. So similarly, authorization works in the technical field also in the APIs. So now suppose we have the different types of authorizations like uh, now admin authorizations will be there. Then we will be having the normal user authorization. So normal user will be only having authority to get access to the only their informations, but the admin will have the permission to view or delete any kind of user information. So that will be different kind of permissions both the user will have. So what will be the authorization flow? So now suppose what I can say. Okay, we have the JSON placeholder earlier which I have shown. So here I'll copy this and I will show it here. So get request. So we might have user/1. When I click on send, okay, so fine. So here I have got some certain list of user of whose ID is 1. So ID is 1 and the name is Lian, and this is a username email ID. Suppose this is my information. I am logged in into this application and I have been assigned with the ID of 1. So I have logged in, I have authenticated myself. So after the authentication, in the post authentication field, I will be getting these kind of endpoints like so I will be getting these kind of endpoints like just a second, endpoints like user/1. So if it is in the web applications, then I can visit it through the my profile field. So there will be my profile field. Once I capture the request in the burp suite, what we will be getting is we will be getting these kind of request where there will be user/1. So what I will be doing is I will be just accessing the user/2, and when I click on send, if I'm able to get another user's details, how, like you can see here, no? So in that way, if I'm able to get another user's details, so I will be not having the authority, I will be not having the proper authorization to give another user's details. So it has like sensitive information like his address, his zip code, his coordinates are there, phone number, website. So all the critical information that was stored in the application's database is being able to view by any other simple or normal users who don't have the proper access to get these kind of resources in his hand. So it is the authorization flaw. If everyone has the authority to get information of any other user, so that will be not a good practice. So every organization will keep that in mind and they will develop it accordingly. So as a tester, we are supposed to test it in that way. We have to check whether there is any authorization flaw and authentication mechanism issues. Like authentication mechanism is if I'm able to do something on behalf of this user. So authorization is basically I'm getting the information. So authentication flaws is, now suppose I might have forgot password field. So in forgot password field, I have to create on like I have to maybe generate a forgot password reset link. So that link when I generate, I will be able to use the email ID here. So when I use the email ID here, the mail hog, if I'm able to access the request for another user by typing two email IDs, and if I'm able to get his authentication token, that will be the authentication flaw. If they have no proper authentication mechanism. So under the APIs, if there is no rate limiting configured in the login field, then that will be also considered as the authentication flaw because compared to the rate limiting, authentication flaw will have higher severity. The impact will be more because due to a successful brute force attack, we will be able to compromise and completely take over the account of another user. So authentication token, there will be other type of testing like based on the or application and depend upon the different API endpoints also. So if there is a API endpoint like I am supposed to I can change my password. So instead of forgot password, there will be change password. So if there's anything like change password, I will be writing the changed password. So suppose here, so that will be available in this one. So in under the Vampy lab, here we have the user update user's password. So when I click on update user's password, I have to type my password here. So I will be typing like test 123. This will be my updated password. And what I will be doing is here there will be username. No? So in the username, I will write another user ID. And when I click on send, if the another user's information it is being updated, that will be the authentication flaw. So ultimately what is happening is without the proper authentication token or the credentials of another user, so user one will be able to change the details of user two. So that is what the authentication flaw is. And authorization flaw, as we have discussed now, if you're able to take over or if you're able to view the another user's information just by changing their IDs, then that will be like now suppose if I access the user 3 to user 2 to user 3, then if that user is existing, then it will be considered as the we will be calling it as BOLA under the OWASP top 10. So if you check the OWASP top 10 for API, we will be having the first one listed as BOLA, that is broken object level authorization. So that will be the authorization vulnerability and the most critical vulnerability and most found vulnerability in the API, where just by changing the IDs. So there will be multiple recommendations or remediation that will be suggesting that are like mainly giving a complex user ID or not leaking the user ID. So suppose if they have any complex user IDs also, they might be leaking it in some kind of endpoints or in the response. So we can get access to those user IDs from other endpoints and other resources, and we can replace it here and we can still get the data. So not only this is like easily guessable ID. So we have to make them like unguessable or uncomplicated user ID so that no one can guess it easily and get the another user's details. And proper role-based access should be given where each user should be only able to access the only their resources. And at the last, we have the mass assignment vulnerability. So what exactly is mass assignment? So under the API, the mass assignment vulnerability, it means is we are adding some additional informations. So from my own request, what I'm able to get is I'm able to get some additional information like website, company, or something like that. There will be user ID. So what I will be doing is when I click on sign up here, so most probably we can test it in the sign up field where I will be adding additional content. So I can add the contents like uh, we can add it as role. So role I can add it, and I can add it as admin. I have to follow the format here. So I have to write it in the inverted quotes, and I have to write a comma here. So when I do this and when I click on send, so once the account is successfully created, I can check whether I have got the admin access or not. So that is what the mass assignment is, where I'll be adding the extra details. I'll be adding extra inputs, and if the server is accepting it and if it is showing the 200 status code okay, then that will be considered as a mass assignment. So mass assignment can lead to the privilege escalation where we can get the admin rights. The vertical privilege escalation can be done, and any admin rights we can perform it, we can exploit it more, and that can be reported as privilege escalation through mass assignment. So this is how we can do it, like simple, like mainly we do it as admin is equal to true or role is equal to admin. There are many other kind of things like we can add it as one. So one means true, or we can add it as success. So different kinds we have to try, and we have to add it in the we have to actually insert it in the server. So mainly we have to target the post request where we are adding the information, giving the information to the server, and it will be recognize it as admin is equal to true, and this particular credential which is done by a normal user, so he will be accessing the admin right. So he can do any admin credentials or admin permissions like delete another user or get information of another user using the admin token. He can perform all these kind of activities even though he is not an admin. So that is what the mass assignment is, whereby simply adding the additional details or additional objects into a request of the APIs. So these are where these some vulnerability testing. So there are other vulnerability testing like injection attacks. There will be like resource attacks, and OS top 10, there will be SSRS also. So all the additional things that we'll be covering under our training program. So these are some of the insights which I was supposed to add in this. So there are other vulnerability testing also that need to be done. And once the final testing is done, we will be coming up with the report. So reporting is also one of the important part where a structured formal report is being done, where we will be not only adding just the report. There are like multiple contents that need to be added. So in the API testing report, it should communicate all the crucial findings. Yeah. So now we have found so many things. Like I was able to find suppose that is a target, and I was able to find the BOLA vulnerability, that is a broken object level authorization. Then what happens is I can do a proper report. I can write the severity, I can add the POCs, I can add the descriptions, and we have to communicate in certain way that it should be easily accessible by the receiving party, by the clients. So not every client will be having high knowledge about this one. So we have to make it as simple as possible. The word should be easily understandable and they should be communicating well. So not as I told, they will be not having high knowledge about technical part. They might be any managers. So we have to make the POC, the steps as easy as possible with screenshots and videos, so that they can reproduce it from there and they can test it and they can confirm, okay, these type of vulnerabilities are available, and the developers team will be focusing on the remediation. So we'll be also giving the remediation to them. So I will be displaying the a sample report. So here I have the sample report. Okay, so this is a sample report from CyberSapiens. So first we'll begin with the title, that is the API VAPT conducted by CyberSapiens United LLP, and we will have the report on where there will be the client details will be there, like their API endpoints or their URLs or their name will be there. And we'll begin with the index where the contents will be listed, like how the report structure will be going on. So it will be beginning with the initial like project overview and then to the conclusion, and in between we will be adding all the technical contents. So here the date of submission, when the report is submitted or when the report is sent, so that date we have to specify, and the version. So multiple testing if you are doing, then the versions will be changing. The initial version will be one, and who it is prepared by, so that we have to add, if it is prepared by a one single API tester, then his name will be there. If it is the entire team, then the team name will be there, and it will be reviewed by, approved by all the professional designated people. Their name will be there, and finally submitted to the client name. And we'll have the executive summary, where the summary of that the particular project will be added, and their names will be available here. And the test graphs, like if they have multiple APIs, then we will be adding like how many are the vulnerable assets, how many are non-vulnerable, and through the graphs also we will be representing them, and the scope of the URL. So if it is a one single scope, then we'll add a one single URL itself. So if you have multiple URLs or multiple APIs, how we have discussed in the scoping questionnaire, and based on that, we will be adding the most more tables. And the methodologies, how we have used it, that we will be adding it here. The OS top 10 methodologies. If we have other methodologies, then we can add it. Then we have the timeline. We can specify the timeline here. If it is a 3 months project, from the starting date to end date. If it is a 1 week project, then the starting date and end date we have to specify. Then the severe, the risk rating here. So critical, vulnerability, high, what will be the impact? What are the different categories that it will be covering, and the low level vulnerability. So we'll be specifying, so that in the upcoming report, they will be clearly understanding what exactly is critical and what is low level. So suppose we have the BOLA. So this is what I have told, the BOLA vulnerability, that is broken object level authorization. So I have found it. So here we have the table, like we have to specify how many critical, how many medium, and how many total vulnerabilities we have found, any informational level we have, that can be also added. And this is the report format which we have. We will be beginning with the first vulnerability, that is BOLA. And if they have any IP addresses or the URL, we will be specifying it. And the risk category, we will be referring it here, and we will be adding it based on how it will be impacting. Based on that impact, we'll be specifying the risk, the description of that particular vulnerability, then impact. So impact will be varying based on the information that we'll be getting. So here I was able to get their coordinates, I was able to get everything except the password. So if I'm able to get the password, then I could have take over the account. So based on what kind of information we are getting, the impact will be varying on that one. So proof of concept. So proof of concept would be like starting with step one, where I have accessed the URL, and I have to specify the URL here. And then step two, I have to capture it in burp source. So based on what steps you have done, you have to add it. And under each step, I have to add a screenshot, or at the end, we can record the screen, and we can attach the video in the POC itself, so that they can be easily understand, and they can easily reproduce the vulnerability from their end. And remediation, we have to add like different remediations for BOLA. So what we have is like as I told, we have to make the ID unpredictable or complicated ID, unguessable ID, and role-based access control. So each user should have certain roles that need to be specified properly. Like one single user should be able to access only his resources. And if we have the missing security header, the next vulnerability. So based on the level of critical the severity, we will be specifying it. So first all the critical levels, then high level, then medium level, then the low level. So how many number of finding we have, that many in the order we have to specify it, and accordingly we have to update it in this table as well as in the previous table which we have discussed, and the tool that which we have used. So the different tools for this project which I have used is mainly the Bobsuit and the Postman, and along with that, each different user will be having their own set of tools that need to be accessed. Like Fuff is used, so here we can add the verb sort intruder, and curl is used so that we can access it to the CMD, to the command line interface, and the conclusion of the project that can be added. And this is how a formal or a structured report looks like. So this sample report, it can be easily created, and there will be different styles of creating a report. The one thing important is they have to be properly and formally communicated. So once the final report is being shared, the respective team or the client, they will be accessing the report. They will be analyzing each of the findings of the report, and then based on the remediation that we have provided, they will be acting upon that one. So once the fixes of the particular weakness or the vulnerability has been applied, they will be coming us back and they will be doing the re-audit. So re-audit is basically we are recreating the attack simulation and we will check whether the attack has been fixed or not, whether the weakness has been completely mitigated. So that mitigation, we will be also giving them the confirmation like the mitigation has been done. And if there are no proper mitigations done, so few of them will be like there will be partial mitigations done. So we will be giving them alternate ideas like you can try this one or this file you can access it or this like firewalls you can add. So based on the vulnerability or the fixation, we will be providing alternative ideas either through meeting or through emails. We will be communicating them and we will be creating one final remediation reports, and after that it will be confirmed. After multiple re-audit, it will be confirmed whether the vulnerability is being fixed or not. And then we have the final part, that is the training. So different clients, they will be accessing the training module based on the how their requirement is. So what will happen is there will be one single training provided to few of the clients, and there will be multiple training provided for the few of the clients. So how that will be working? So one single training will be, we will be creating an awareness or a cybersecurity training for them, like how to create an APIs or how to create the web application. So based on the applications they give us to test, based on that we will be providing the detailed training. So few of them might require like per week one sessions related to a single vulnerability. We might be able to train them like how the attacks works, how the phishing works, or how you can stay safe from these kind of attacks. So certain topics that we'll be covering. So based on how the client want, we will be planning the next phases of the training. So if they have one single day assigned, so in the one single day we will be covering certain set of topics and we will be giving an awareness to them like how that can be prevented in their upcoming development phase or any new products or applications if they're building, how they can keep this in mind and they can design it accordingly. So that is the main idea behind training, so that in the future those kind of attacks are not those kind of weaknesses are not present in their applications. So this was like the entire process, how an API testing looks like. And from the API testing point of view, this will be the like A to Z, the process and the phases that will be covering in the API from the client perspective and the cybersecurity company perspective. So from the initial scoping phase until the reporting and the training phases. So in order to learn this kind of attacks or this kind of API penetration testing, we introduce you to our latest training and cybersecurity internship course, that is the Cyber Fusion batches. So we will be training you, we will be giving a hands-on experience for you based on different application testings like web application testing. Then we have the mobile application testing, API testing, and we have a certain team of the cybersecurity analyst, the senior cybersecurity analyst. So they are not like mentors, they will be a security professional. So based on their experience, based on their ideas, they will be training you. And along with the training, you will be also given the internship opportunities. So once you go out of this training or internship, you won't be a fresher because we will be giving you an experience later when you go out. So you will have a certain kind of industry level experience. You will be given with these kind of clients and these kind of projects for you to work on. So you can get more details from by visiting this URL. So don't miss out this opportunity. So if you want to register into our upcoming batches, then you can scan this URL. So you guys can take a screenshot of this one and you guys can register it, or else scan through your mobile and you can register it, so that our designated team we have advisor team who will be clearing all your doubts related to all the internship processes, how the starting and ending will be done, how many allots, the time allot, any doubt you have, anything you have, they will be available for you based on your timings. We will be scheduling the calls, so you can register itself and you can set your time allot, so that we will be communicating with you and you can get a clear idea about our training program. So along with the vulnerability testing, we will be also providing SOC training, network VAPT training, cloud VAPTs. So all the different training modules are available. So in which you are interested, you can register based upon that one. So, so if you guys have any doubts, you can post your doubts in the form, I think, which has been already shared by you from the backend team.
Rahif, just let's just give attendees some 5 minutes to fill, let them fill the form. Okay.
Sure, 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 sir.
Yeah, you can take 5 minutes rest for now. Okay, I'll take care. So, guys, I've just shared the Google form for you guys to register for the training program. That is our cybersecurity training and internship program, which we have named Cyber Fusion. So, you guys can register for it. And let me tell you, if you guys, this is for just again for the webinar attendees only. Like if you register before 14th October, you will be getting our bug hunting training program worth 15,000 and the ethical hacking training program worth 5,000. Now, that makes it 20,000 worth of courses free along with the main training program. So let's say you register for our main training program, which for that you will have to pay. Okay, there is an amount, but along with that, you will get our those two training program. That is one is bug hunting and the ethical hacking certified ethical hacking training program completely for free. So I have shared the link in the chat. You guys can or you guys can scan that QR code which Rahif has shared. So we'll just give you 2-3 minutes. Okay, you have that time. Just go and fill it over, and once you fill it, most probably by tomorrow or Monday, our course advisors will get in touch with you and share all the details about the training program and the offer as well. If you have any questions regarding the training program, you guys can mention in the chat. I'm there to answer. Once we are done with this, we will move on to the Q&A session, which will be taken by Rahif. Okay. Because the cybersecurity training program which we are talking about, it's a paid training program. But let's say again, if you register for the main training program, which is paid, okay. But along with that training program, we are offering two of our courses: bug hunting worth 15,000 and certified ethical hacking training program worth 5,000, completely for free, along with the main training program. And let me tell you guys, the batches are starting by next week. From next week on 18th, we are starting a new batch. So if you guys want to start and start as soon as possible and want to enroll in the training program, then this is the best time. Okay. We'll start with the Q&A session at 7:40. Sai Chandra, the price is very nominal, I would say. Okay, it is very affordable and which will be communicated by the course advisors. Okay, so once you have, let's say, fill that form out, the course advisors will get in touch with you and update you with all the details about the training program. Raif, I think we can start with the Q&A session. Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so what I'll do, I'll just share the Slido link in the chat where our attendees can share their questions, ask the questions. or they can just directly ask their questions in the webinar chat as well. Okay. So, guys, for the webinar, I've shared the questions in the chat. Anybody who has any questions, just go to that link, ask your questions, and Rahib will be answering all of the queries. Yes, Rahib, over to you. Okay.
Yeah,
You can take over.
yeah, sure. Thank you, Saurabh. So if you guys have any questions related to today's topic, then we can have a discussion on it. So Aruna, I guess you're asking like, give me the response header which was not set as the vulnerability. What I mean is you're asking the question like the response header which was not considered as the vulnerability is what I am assuming. So now, okay. So if you see here, in the response itself, in the Postman, we'll be getting the headers. So you can find the different headers here. So there are like headers like the informational headers like server related, the information related to the date and time of the information, and also it will be adding the security related vulnerability, the security headers also, which I've explained, like each different security headers and its own objectives. So what will happen is we can add it from here itself. So these are some of the main, these are some of the important security headers that should be testing for the and the missing security headers of the APIs. So I will share it in the chat box itself, or I will share it in the Slido chat where you can access it from there. Yeah. So in this, you can get access to those. And some of the other response headers which are not considered as the vulnerability will be emitted out from this one, and only the security headers which will be missing, which will lead to the vulnerability will be get it response in the test results of this one. Yes, if there's any other questions, then please post it out.
Hi guys, so if you have any questions, please do ask that in Slido. Okay, if not, then we can close the webinar. Okay, if you guys don't have any questions for Rahif, then we can close the webinar. Okay, right. Let's just wait for 2 more minutes. If there is a question, then we will have you can answer it. If not, then we will close the webinar. Okay. Guys, any career related advice you want, anything related and API penetration testing, you can ask him. Okay.
Yeah, so I have got one more question from Aruna. Like, sir, can we check for no SQL injection here? Yeah, so no SQL injections. As I told, injection vulnerabilities can also be tested, and no SQL injection is a part of them. So based on the database server, it can be either tested as SQL injection or no SQL injections. So if it is a MongoDB, then it will be a no SQL injections. So you can get the payloads easily, and we can insert it here in the. So suppose I have the few of the contents here. So in the notepad, I have, hope it's visible. So here, so some of the like NoSQL links. So the link has been provided here. So from the payload of all things, you can get access to the NoSQL injections or SQL injections. So there can be like, these are the injection attacks under the API. So we can either test it in the login field, just like how we do the auth bypass attack. So in the login field, there will be the email ID and the password, and we can add these kind of payloads to check for the bypassing of the login field. And like basically how this works is this check for the statements like dash one dash is equal to dash one, where the first statement, if it is true, then under the or condition, if the second statement is true and either one of the statement is true, then it will be giving us the output. So in that particular payload which we enter, one is equal to one will be always true, and for that reason we will be if it is taking those as the SQL codes instead of a normal string, then that will lead to a vulnerability where it will evaluate or it will execute thinking that one is equal to one. So this is a true statement. And for that reason, it will be bypassing the auth. So yeah, so we can check for the no SQL injection and SQL injection also. So there's some of the links which you can access it, and these are some of the payloads which I use. And along with the SQL injections, the other injections are like the command injections to the email ID fields. We can use the pipe command or the ampersand signs, and we can type the different commands, and we can try to check the response if it is generated in the response field of the Postman or in the burp sort. So the no SQL injections can be tested, which will be coming under the response field. I hope that answers the question.
Right, there is one more question in the chat and two more on Slido.
Okay, I'll check it. So exposure of the server versions can be a yeah, exposure of server can be a low level vulnerability. So only if they are using any outdated versions, and if that outdated versions has any potential attack entry points, then that can be reported, but as a low level, like a banner disclosure or something. So I have one more query, like I have done a SQL map and found only specific specification page. So what I can do with it? So if you come up with more details, then I might be able to answer it. Okay, so this specification page which we have shared. Okay, so it's a file, something like the Swagger UI. So Swagger UI is, as I told, the APIs won't have any UIs, but Swagger is a kind of a platform which it gives a kind of UI where we can do the testing or we can import the files also. So in this configuration file, what you have got is We can check in that file by doing a control F and check for the auth tokens if it is enabled or any SQL errors. And if there's any SQL error, then we can try to like higher impact by adding the versions of the SQLs or by adding the database names from their informational schema. So all those things can be done. So if we have to like mainly check for the potential endpoints or the entry fields, basically if there's any user input field that are being able to enter, and from there we can try for the mainly the SQL injections, and SQL map also will be mainly used. So if we get any SQL errors either through any of the endpoints which you have shared now, so if you have any only the errors which is from the SQL database, not from the server. So if those errors are there, then we can add that endpoint to SQL map like normally how we do it in the web application. So similarly that can be done, and we might be able to get retrieve the information of the database. So that we have to check either to SQL map or through some manual codes, the payloads. So which will be available in the payload of all things as I have shown it just now. So any other doubts, then please post it here.
Guys, if you guys have any other questions, then please do ask. Otherwise, we will wrap this up. Okay. Let's just wait for a minute or so. If there is no new question, then we can wrap it up with the final work. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. No more questions are coming in, so we'll stop at that. The Q&A session is over. Now, guys, one last thing. We request you guys to like give us a feedback. Okay, so I'm will be sharing a feedback link in the WhatsApp group also. So if you attended the webinar and you liked the webinar, you liked what was shared in the webinar, okay, and the way it was shared, you appreciate if you appreciate the efforts that we are doing to bring these type of free webinars to you, then please do give us a feedback, and we really look forward to the feedbacks that you provide us. Okay, and yeah, it helps us to like motivate and keep on bringing us more free valuable webinars for you. So yeah, I'll share the feedback link in the group, plus I'm sharing the feedback link here also, so you guys can go and just give your feedbacks whatever you feel like. Okay, so yeah, right, anything you have to say, then please, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you guys for first of all attending. And so as Saurabh told, if you have any valuable suggestions, any future ideas for webinar, then please post it out in the feedback, and give a comment for this webinar also. The areas of any improvements or any positive or negative feedbacks, you can please post it out, and we will be working better for the upcoming webinars, and we'll try to meet your expectations.
Yeah, I think we can close the webinar. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for attending. If you have any questions, then do connect with our mentor on LinkedIn. Okay, I will share his LinkedIn profile in our webinar group also, so you can connect with him directly, ask the questions there. And yeah, thanks a lot for being in the webinar, and we'll see you soon with a new webinar next month. Again, in advance, it will be an advanced topic, so make sure like you are ready for a webinar that will be coming next month. And yeah, see you in the next webinar. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Rai.
Thank you all. Thank you, Saurabh.
Thanks. Bye.